All right, so today we're going to focus on MAGA and what it means to be MAGA. Clash between Tucker Carlson and Shapiro. At Turning Point America last month, organization Charlie Kirk they had their meeting. And at that meeting, Shapiro called out Tucker Carlson for being anti-Semitic, which he calls anti-American because he didn't challenge some of the guests who come on his show who have a history of making so-called anti-Jewish statements. He said that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and other notable Christian right, American first supporters or promoters are grifters and they need to be deplatformed, basically. Now, Tucker Carlson, in response, has said that all Shapiro is trying to do is to deplatform his voice and the voice of people like Candace Owens in order to just silence the true movement of MAGA, which is supposed to be a populist movement, which is, by the definition of the way Tucker Carlson looks at it, and the way I see MAGA, is that a MAGA is saying, for any policy you do, anything you do, forget about conservatism or not, is it in America's interest, and is it good? If it's in America's interest, that means it's good for the American people. Shapiro's view seems to me, as far as I'm concerned, to be more neocon and more focused on policies, especially in Israel. And we know that he is a Jewish person. Nothing wrong with that. But he feels that America should be closely supportive of Israel for American interests, supposedly to stabilize the Middle East. He doesn't have any policies or that tend to favor the poor. He hasn't mentioned anything about spending more money on taxes for middle class and poor Americans, where we've seen Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Marjorie Taylor Greene even say that at times there should be government spending on healthcare, even though that's not a traditionally conservative view. So what we have now with Shapiro is that Shapiro is basically an agent of deconstruction of the populist movement to get it out of the Republican Party. He wants to redefine republicanism as not being populism because he doesn't represent anything that's actually that's in our interest. The only things he's been pushing right now are continual support and alignment with Israel. And also, he's against ending the war with Ukraine because he says we have to defang Russia and keep them preoccupied with Ukraine, which goes against the core tenet of MAGA, which is supposed to be moving away from that. And that's what Trump promised us to move away from. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crystal clear that Tucker Carlson's ideologies are significantly closer to the America First MAGA movement, than Ben Shapiro. Although both of them are prominent conservatives, Shapiro represents an elitist traditional kind of republicanism, so to speak, whereas Carlson really embodies the populist, like you said, nationalist shift that is being led by Donald Trump. And you can see by their policies, protect the economy by prioritizing domestic manufacturing and using tariffs to protect American jobs. Sovereignty and nationalism. You look at some of their policies, you can see that those are policies that Tucker Carlson normally supports. Strict immigration enforcement, because avoiding foreign wars and alliances unless there's a direct, tangible benefit to the U.S. That's also something that I feel is one of the MAGA ideologies, not just, pumping money to support wars outside of the country. And I think this is also where Tucker Carlson stands. But if you look at Ben Shapiro is more of a free market capitalist. He opposes tariffs, which is against what Trump supports, and he views them as taxes on consumers, basically. So he is not, you can't in any way say that he is more MAGA than
no, because to me, and I think what Shapiro is doing is he's conflating MAGA with conservatism. Yes, Shapiro is conservative, okay? Now, conservative doesn't mean you're MAGA. Now, MAGA has conservative strengths within it, like, marriage, Christian family, maybe anti-LGBTQ, and those types of things in that way. But it goes beyond that also, because what MAGA is saying is that American economic and social issues come first. Everything else is secondary. And part of the MAGA allure that Trump brought was that he's not part of the swamp. He's not part of the corrupt politicians and insiders who do all of these wars, who have all of these foreign policies, which are benefiting foreign agents and also American agents, but not all of America, only the politicians and the corporations, while the blue collar workers in America, the middle class, the lower middle class are suffering. And what Trump said was he was going to have economic policies and a lack of focus on militarization, U.S. imperialism, and everything to get to a more isolationist view to focus on America. But what you see with Shapiro reinforces America's imperial aids. He's for attacking Iran. He's for attacking Iran. He's for helping Israel. He's for fighting Russia. Now, what he will say is that it's putting America first because it's putting our security first, or it's looking for resources in other countries to help us. On both of those, Trump explicitly said while he was running that all of those things are not true, that we know that they're just trumping up this fear of an external threat so they can continue spending on military and can continue helping corporations exploit other countries' resources or have regime changes all over the world to the benefit not of America, but to the benefit of a few elites in the West. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. And often Tucker is seen as someone that is anti-traditional institutions, if you can put it that way. Because I mean, Shapiro is an is a traditional institution
Yeah,
apologist.
traditionalist. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
And,
is a very principles conservative. But if you look at Tucker Carlson, he embraces a kind of anti-establishment populist stance. He often positions himself like a champion of the working class against corrupt ruling elite class, and
yeah,
attacks the traditional Republican leaders. So to me,
yeah.
he's closer to the MAGA base in the true sense of it.
And I think that that's where we get to the point now where we see that MAGA, in its essence, is not really a conservative movement. It's actually a transformational movement. Now,
Yes.
within MAGA, you may have some people who have conservative values when it comes to sex or culture, but it's revolutionary when it comes to the fact that whatever it needs to take to put America first, we are willing to change. Perfect example for that was when Marjorie Taylor Greene supported keeping what they call Obamacare. Usually Republicans sort of make fun of people who want health care and say it's anti-socialism. But you see within the Republican Party, now that middle class and lower middle class whites are suffering almost close to the poverty line or are suffering from inflation, lack of enough money for healthcare and things, they're starting to look like socialists. So it shows you that the MAGA movement is not so conservative. It's a little bit open and liberal. What I mean by liberal in the sense that they can change their ideology on things like socialism and anything, if in fact it will help America. And I think that a lot of the MAGA people like Tucker Carlson are beginning to see that. Also, it's not conservative in that, yeah, we know that the conservative Republicans have always been about regime change and controlling other countries through violence. But the MAGA movement is basically saying we don't care about the military if it's not meeting our needs. And it's not meeting our needs, it's actually taking our tax money and putting it elsewhere. What you see with Shapiro is he's not a MAGA person. In 2016, he was against Trump. He was anti-Trump. Then all of a sudden, he's not close to Trump, but he's working with Trump, helped him with his election campaign. And what he's basically doing is bringing up a platform which goes against everything that Trump promised the Americans. He's against tariffs. Trump promised that's what the Americans wanted, even though I'm against it. He's against tariffs. He's also for continuing these military adventures in Iran, helping Israel and everything else, which the MAGA base have clearly said they're against. The MAGA base actually are also against what's going on with the genocide of Palestinians. So what you see with MAGA is that it's not necessarily Republican or conservative. It's just basically supposedly, and by definition, a movement that's supposed to improve Americans' social and economic conditions. That's what it's supposed to be about. Now, a lot of the times they think that it's going to go through the route of Republican policies like not taxing the rich and everything. But I think they're beginning to realize that that's not how it's going to work. So they're going to have to change their political alignment. And what I mean by that is that MAGA really does not look like a Republican Party anymore. It doesn't look like a Democratic Party either. It has to find its way on figuring out actually what economic principles or what types of structures you need to actually make America better. But that's more of a technical thing. So what I would say then is that MAGA actually is just defining what America should be, and it can be done through any party if they put the policies that MAGA needs, and those policies will be whatever helps America stay sound economically and socially. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Staying sound economically and socially, and being,
that's the definition of MAGA for Americans.
Yeah, for Americans. So, and that's why I like Tucker Carlson, because his main theme is neglecting domestic issues. He has always been against that. And if you look at him when he's talking about, for instance, Ukraine, aid to Ukraine, he always juxtaposes that with the problems in America. He says we are sending billions to protect Ukraine borders while our own southern border is wide open. Those are the kind of arguments you see him bringing to the fore. But Shapiro, like you said, he is anti-Trump, if you look at it, because he says that the amount being used, for Ukraine against Russia is a fraction of the U.S. defense budget. Yet he will be criticizing Biden that he's not spending the money properly.
Yeah, so in
the true sense of it, he's not really a MAGA person, because he still supports spending. His foreign policy ideology supports spending taxpayers' money to fund wars that don't really affect America.
Now, what he would say is that it's for America's benefit, because we have to defend, we have to protect, we have to be secure. Okay, but I'm going to argue that that's what Trump was saying, was that these politicians are trumping up false flags and false insecurity to make us believe that we need to spend on that. And this is how Trump has lost his way. And I believe that.
But to say it's a fraction of the U.S. defense budget, I don't think that is a good rhetoric, really. It's millions of dollars.
It's millions. And what really is happening is that Trump is moving away from his MAGA base because he has to please his funders, which are AIPAC and also the industrial war complex, which is why he has to bomb Nigeria, bomb Venezuela. I'm not saying he's doing this because he wants to. He's doing this because he has to answer to the people who put him in office. And Shapiro is one of the people who helped put him in office. And what Shapiro is doing now is systematically destroying the MAGA movement by going after Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and other people, because they're a threat to the establishment.
Yeah.
The MAGA movement is a threat to the establishment. What they're doing, what Shapiro is doing, is helping the establishment tear down this movement and try to invalidate their views, call them anti-Semitic and everything, so that they lose followers, because it's very powerful. It's the same thing that people in the Democratic Party and the liberals are doing to people like Mamdani or to people like Bernie Sanders, who are also populists and could cause a revolution within the Democratic Party. They have to be stabilized. So what Shapiro represents is a move to stabilize the America First populist movement, so that it's no longer a threat to business as usual, which is where the Democrats and the Republicans continue funding wars all over the world, toppling governments, and are actively committing genocide in Palestine through their agent Israel. Last thoughts.
So basically, Tucker Carlson is a clear ideological successor to the MAGA movement, because it consists
along with Marjorie Taylor Greene,
yes, Taylor Greene as well. So he consistently champions the specific blend of, the protecting the economy, cultural nativism that defines Trump. But Ben Shapiro is almost like he's trying to preserve the old order and maintain core traditional conservative views, especially in areas on free trade and foreign intervention. And like you rightly said, is trying to see as much as possible that the Tucker Carlson ideology does not swallow what the old view stands for, basically, So Ben Shapiro is often at odds with America First platform, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's where
I have a feeling that MAGA is going to become its own party and it's going to split from the Republican. MAGA will whip the Republican Party because MAGA has enough following of middle class and poor Americans, which outnumber.
MAGA is like a movement, really. It's not like a political party. It's like a movement.
It's like the only movement in America right now. The other ones, the Democrats, all those movements by Bernie Sanders and stuff, and even then, it's not really movements. It's just a cult. There's the cult of what's his name, Mamdani. It's just a cult. Mamdani doesn't actually have what I would call an articulate plan that can work. Nor do the MAGA people either, but at least the MAGA people is a bunch of people that are unified. I don't see a lot of people unified behind Mamdani. All right, take us out.